Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Tonight's story is a descent into a house that does not want to be understood. It is a tale of architecture that feels like a trap, of corridors that seem to lean closer when you are not looking, of laughter that arrives a second too late, as if it has traveled a long distance through cold air just to reach you. Now let's begin. Hill House. I first heard the name in a voice message from a man who sounded like he had not slept in weeks. His words were careful, professional, and yet threaded with something that kept snagging on the syllables, as if the house itself were listening through the line. He said that his name was Dr. Caldwell, and that he was assembling a small group for a study. Not a seance, not a circus, a study. He spoke about environment and perception, about stress and suggestion, about the way old structures carry sound and memory, and how certain people are more sensitive to it. He said the house was famous in the way dangerous things become famous. The kind of fame that makes real estate listings vanish and local historians lower their voices. He offered a stipend. He offered credit for my dissertation. He offered access to primary documents and architectural plans that had not been published. He offered, without meaning to, a sentence that made my skin prickle even before I agreed. Hill House, he said, was built with an obsession for symmetry that never quite resolves. Every room answers another, but the answers are wrong by a fraction. There is not a single right angle in the entire place, though your eyes will swear there are. The house looks stable, but your body does not believe it. I told him I studied liminal psychology, thresholds, the way people react to spaces that feel uncertain. I told him I had lived in drafty apartments and slept in the back of my car, and once spent 3 nights in an abandoned hospital wing for a field project. I told him that I was not easily unsettled. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, very softly, "You may find that being unsettled is not the same as being invited." I should have heard the warning inside that sentence. I should have recognized the careful shape of it. Instead, I felt my curiosity lift its head like an animal catching a scent. I said yes. 2 weeks later, on a gray afternoon that seemed to be holding its breath, I drove out of the city and into the rolling hills. The roads narrowed and the trees thickened, and the sky lowered until it felt close enough to touch. When my signal vanished, I told myself it was normal. When the last gas station disappeared behind me, I told myself it was quaint. When the road turned to a lane that seemed to knot through the woods like a vein, I told myself it was only inconvenient. Then I reached the iron gate. The gate was tall, black, and ornate in the way old money prefers, filigreed with vines and thorns. A stone wall ran away into the trees on either side, disappearing into moss and shadow. The air around it felt colder, as if the woods kept their warmth for themselves and left this place untouched. I had been given a code. I entered it. The gate opened with a sound like a long-held breath finally released. As I drove through, I realized something odd. The trees inside the property were not like the trees outside. They looked the same, but they stood differently, leaning inward with a subtle attentiveness. Their branches did not tangle, as if they had learned to keep a respectful distance from each other. The gravel drive curved in a way that made it hard to judge distance, and then, after a final bend, the house appeared. Hill House did not rise from the land so much as press against the sky. It was a mansion in the old sense, wide-shouldered, heavy-roofed, with towers that did not quite match and windows that caught no light. It was pale stone stained by decades of rain, and dark wood that looked too dark to be natural. The front facade was symmetrical at first glance, but the longer I stared, the more it slipped. A window slightly higher than its twin, a column a fraction thicker, a porch step that should have aligned but did not. The effect was nauseating, like a familiar face in a dream that never looks quite right. Even before I got out of the car, I felt it in my bones. Not fear exactly, a kind of reluctance. My body wanted to stay where the engine heat still lingered. My body wanted to remain inside something that could move away. I forced myself out anyway. The air smelled of wet leaves, old stone, and something faintly metallic, like a penny rubbed between fingers. The silence was wrong. Not peaceful, not quiet. It was the kind of silence that feels actively maintained, as if noise is unwelcome here and learns to die quickly. The front door was enormous, framed by carved wood so detailed it looked like it could still grow. The handle was cold enough to sting when I touched it. I knocked, and the sound seemed to vanish into the door without echo. A moment later, it opened. A woman stood there, not old, but worn in a way that made her seem carved from patience. Her hair was pinned tight. Her dress was plain. She had the posture of someone who has spent a lifetime ensuring that things stay in their proper places. "You must be Mara," she said. Her voice did not rise at the end like a question. It was a statement of fact, as if my name was written somewhere inside her. "Yes," I said, "I am Mara." "I am Mrs. Quill," she said, "housekeeper. You will wipe your feet. You will not smoke indoors. You will not wander. Meals are at fixed times. Dr. Caldwell has rules. This house has more." Her gaze moved over my face, my shoulders, my hands, as if cataloging. Then she stepped back, and I stepped over the threshold. Immediately, something changed. The air inside was cooler, heavier. It had a scent I could not name at first, a mixture of dust and polish and age, but beneath it, something faintly sweet, as if the house had once been full of flowers and now only remembered them. My ears adjusted in a strange way, as if sound traveled differently here. My footsteps landed too softly on the dark wood floor. The hallway stretched ahead, long and dim, lined with portraits whose eyes did not hold any light. Mrs. Quill closed the door behind me with a decisive click, and the sound was final. Not a door shutting, a boundary sealing. "Dr. Caldwell is in the library," she said. others have arrived. The others. I followed her down the hall, trying not to look too closely at the corners where shadows pooled. The walls were paneled, the ceiling high, the light low. There were lamps, but their glow did not reach far. It reminded me of theaters just before the curtain lifts, that hush of anticipation where anything could happen. We passed an archway, and I felt a pressure change in my head. Not painful, but distinct, like stepping into a room where a conversation has abruptly stopped. Mrs. Quill did not react. She walked as if she had never noticed such things, or had long ago decided not to. The library was warm compared to the hall, filled with the smell of paper and leather. A fire burned in a wide stone hearth. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. The windows were tall, but the curtains were drawn, and the light inside came from lamps and flames rather than the day. Dr. Caldwell stood by a table covered in folders and a map of the house. He was in his late 50s, neatly dressed, glasses perched low, the sort of man who might have been handsome if his eyes did not look so tired. He smiled when he saw me, and I saw relief flicker across his face, as if each arrival had been a small victory. "Mara," he said, "thank you for coming." He shook my hand. His grip was firm but damp, as if he had been holding his own anxiety too tightly. He gestured to the others. A tall man with restless hands leaned against a bookshelf. His hair was dark, his jaw tight, his eyes bright in a way that suggested he was always looking for the next joke or the next exit. He gave me a quick grin. "Name's Jonas," he said. I was promised a haunted house and an academic excuse to scream, so I am living my dream. A woman sat on a leather chair by the fire, legs crossed, posture relaxed, as if she owned the room. She had short hair and a smile that looked like it had been sharpened. "Alina," she said, "I teach art history, and I do not believe in ghosts. So if anything here tries to float at me, I will be very disappointed." A third person stood near the window, close enough that the curtain brushed their shoulder. A young man, early 20s, with an earnest face and a notebook already open. He looked up when I entered, and his eyes held a nervous friendliness. "I am Simon," he said. "I am, here because Dr. Caldwell says I have a particular sensitivity. That makes it sound like I am a radio." He laughed, but it broke too quickly, like a twig snapping. Dr. Caldwell cleared his throat. "Thank you," he said. "That is everyone. 4 participants, plus me and Mrs. Quill. We are here for 1 week. 1 week," I repeated, more to anchor the thought than to confirm. 1 week, he said. "We will document experiences, sleep patterns, perceptions, and emotional responses. You will be asked to write daily entries. You will be monitored for stress. You will not be harmed." Jonas snorted softly. Bold promise in a place like this. Dr. Caldwell's smile was thin. "This house has a history," he said. "There have been accidents, tragedies, stories. We are not here to indulge the stories. We are here to observe how people respond to the environment when they expect a story. Elena raised an eyebrow. So the haunting is the expectation. Dr. Caldwell hesitated. In the pause, the fire crackled, and the sound felt too loud. The haunting, he said, is whatever happens when you put a human nervous system inside a place built like this. He tapped the map. Hill House was designed by Silas Briarwick, a man with an obsession for precision. He wanted a house that would feel perfectly balanced, perfectly ordered. The irony, of course, is that his pursuit of perfection resulted in subtle distortions. The angles are slightly off. The corridors do not meet as they should. It creates a low-level disorientation that can amplify stress and suggestion. He said all this the way a scientist recites known facts. But I noticed his hand drift to the edge of the table, as if he needed the wood under his palm. Mrs. Quill will show you your rooms, he continued. You will stay in the East Wing. You will not go into the West Wing. The West Wing is closed. You will not go into the nursery at the top of the North Tower. It is unstable. You will not go on the roof. You will not, under any circumstances, leave your room at night without informing me. Jonas opened his mouth, likely to make a joke, but Dr. Caldwell's gaze stopped him. This is not a game, he said quietly. This house is not kind to carelessness. Mrs. Quill stepped forward. Rooms, she said. She led us out of the library and up a staircase that curved in a way that made me feel slightly off balance. The banister was smooth from years of hands. The walls were lined with framed photographs instead of portraits here, but the photographs were old, the faces solemn, their eyes too dark. As we climbed, the air grew cooler, and the house made its own noises, soft clicks and sighs that might have been settling wood, but did not sound like it. Jonas whistled under his breath. This place is expensive sadness, he murmured. Elena glanced at him. You are very loud when you are anxious. I am loud when I am alive, he said. If I go quiet, check the walls for my skeleton. Mrs. Quill did not react. She opened a door at the top of the stairs and ushered us into a corridor. The East Wing hallway was lined with doors, evenly spaced, but again, my eyes kept catching something wrong. The floorboards seemed to slant ever so slightly. The lamps were hung at heights that did not match. It was subtle, but my body felt it, like walking on a deck that is always moving. Mrs. Quill assigned rooms without asking preferences. Mara, she said, you will take the room at the end. Elena across from her. Jonas, the second door. Simon, the first. She handed each of us a key. The keys were heavy, old, their metal worn smooth. When she pressed mine into my palm, it was so cold it felt wet. There are bells, she said, pointing to small brass pulls beside each bed. For service. Do not pull them for amusement. The house does not like being rung like a toy. And with that, she left us alone in the corridor. I stood for a moment with the others, feeling the quiet settle around us like dust. Well, Alina said, cheerful in a way that was almost defiant. Shall we see our doomed accommodations? Jonas bowed. After you, my brave skeptic. Simon gave a small smile, then quickly turned toward his door, as if he had remembered something urgent about being alone. I walked to my room at the end of the hall. The door opened on a space that was larger than my apartment, furnished with a heavy bed, a wardrobe, a writing desk, and a small sitting area. The wallpaper was faded floral, the pattern repeating with obsessive regularity. The curtains were thick, blocking the view. The air smelled like cold cloth and old perfume. There was a mirror above the dresser. I do not like mirrors in unfamiliar places. Mirrors feel too much like eyes. Still, I looked, and for a second my reflection seemed delayed, like a video lag. I blinked, and it matched me again. I told myself it was the light. The bedspread was neatly tucked, the corners sharp. A single lamp sat on the bedside table, its shade a pale yellow. I turned it on. The light did not fill the room as much as I expected. It clung near the lamp and left the corners dim. I set my bag down and walked to the window. The curtains resisted as I pulled them aside, heavy as stage drapes. Outside, the trees pressed close. The glass reflected more of the room than it revealed of the day. I could see the faint outline of my own face layered over branches. I let the curtain fall again. A knock came at the door, quick and light. I opened it to find Jonas leaning in the doorway, grinning. "Roommate check," he said. "If you are already possessed, please tell me now so I can choose a better exorcist." I snorted despite myself. "Not possessed yet." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Do you feel it?" "Feel what?" He glanced down the hall, then back at me. "Like the house is watching, like it has opinions." I hesitated. The sensible part of me wanted to dismiss it, to maintain the academic distance I had brought with me like armor. But the other part of me, the body part, the animal part, knew exactly what he meant. "Yes," I admitted, "I feel it." Jonas's grin softened into something less playful. "Good," he said. I thought I was being dramatic. Alina's door opened across the hall. She leaned out. "If you two are bonding, do it quietly," she said. "Some of us are trying to unpack and maintain our dignity." Jonas saluted. "Yes, ma'am." He turned back to me. "Dinner soon," he said. "If I do not come back down, assume I got eaten by a bookshelf." Then he walked away, his footsteps too soft on the slanted boards. I closed my door and took another look at the room. I opened the wardrobe. Inside, empty hangers hung like ribs. I ran my hand over the back wall and felt grooves, shallow scratches, as if someone had dragged fingernails there. I withdrew my hand quickly. My rational mind began building explanations. Old wood, children, movers, previous occupants. But the scratches were high, too high for a child, and they were clustered in a way that suggested panic. I forced myself to unpack anyway. That evening, we gathered in the dining room. The dining room was long, set with a table that could have seated 20. Only 6 places were set. The overhead chandelier hung like a frozen cascade of glass. Candles burned along the table, their flames still, as if the air refused to move. Mrs. Quill served soup and bread with brisk efficiency. Dr. Caldwell spoke about schedules and procedures. Jonas cracked jokes that landed with a slight delay. Alina sipped wine and watched the room as if appraising a painting. Simon ate quietly, eyes flicking to the corners. At one point, I thought I heard a sound from above. A soft thump, like a footstep. I paused mid-bite. "Did you hear that?" I asked. Jonas cocked his head. "The house settling," he said. Alina smiled. "Or the ghosts tap dancing. Very tasteful." Dr. Caldwell's face tightened. "There is no one above us," he said. Another thump sounded, this time closer, like something heavy shifting. Simon's spoon clinked against his bowl. His hand trembled. "It is probably the pipes," he said quickly, too quickly. Mrs. Quill's eyes flicked upward for a fraction of a second, then back to the table. "Eat," she said. "Food gets cold." We ate. Later in the library, Dr. Caldwell distributed journals and small devices to monitor sleep patterns. He reminded us again about boundaries. "The West Wing is locked," he said. "The North Tower is dangerous. If you experience anything unusual, record it. Do not chase it. Do not attempt to recreate it. This is observation, not provocation." Jonas raised a hand. "What qualifies as unusual? Like if my bed levitates, or if the house whispers my childhood nickname." Dr. Caldwell did not smile. "Unusual," he said, "is anything that makes you feel less like yourself." That sentence landed harder than the others. It felt less like a guideline and more like a truth. We went to our rooms. I tried to sleep. It is hard to describe the way a room can feel awake while you are trying to become unconscious. The bed was comfortable enough, the blankets heavy, the air cool. And yet, I could not relax. My body held itself with a subtle tension, as if expecting a sudden noise. Every time I drifted toward sleep, I felt an awareness, like a hand, hovering over my face. At some point, I heard laughter. It was faint, far away, like someone laughing in another wing. It did not sound happy. It sounded like someone trying to convince themselves they were. I sat up, heart thudding. The laughter stopped. Silence returned, thick and deliberate. I lay back down. Then I heard a knock. 3 taps, slow, measured, on the wall beside my bed. Not on the door, on the wall. My throat tightened. I stared at the wallpaper, at the repeating flowers, at the shadowed corner where the ceiling met the wall. 3 taps again. I held my breath. After a long moment, a whisper drifted through the silence. It was so faint it might have been my imagination, but the sound had shape, like words forming with careful effort. "Come closer." My skin went cold. I did not move. The whisper did not repeat. Instead, something else happened, something that made my blood feel like it turned to ice. The bed shifted, just slightly, as if someone had sat on the edge. The mattress dipped near my feet. I could feel the weight. I could feel it settle. I did not look. I told myself not to look. Because looking makes things real. Because looking acknowledges. Because looking invites. The weight remained for what felt like a lifetime. Then the mattress eased back up, slowly, as if the unseen presence stood and drifted away. The room was still. I lay rigid until exhaustion finally dragged me under. Morning came with pale light and the sound of birds outside that seemed strangely distant. When I woke, my body ached as if I had been clenched all night. My journal lay on the desk where I had left it, except it was open. I was certain I had closed it. I sat up staring. The page was blank, but there was an indentation, as if something had been written and erased, pressed hard enough to leave scars in the paper. My name. I could see it in the grooves, the shape of letters. Myra. I touched the indentation with my fingertips. The paper felt rough, as if abraded. I swallowed and wrote in my journal immediately, my handwriting shaky. Last night heard laughter, heard tapping on wall, whisper, felt weight on bed, journal open in morning, indentation of my name. When I left my room, I found Jonas in the hall, hair messy, eyes bright with sleeplessness. "You too," he said. I frowned. "To what?" He stepped closer and lowered his voice. Something sat on my bed, like an actual person. I did not look, because I am not an idiot. But my mattress did the whole dip thing, and then I heard breathing. Slow, right by my ear. His attempt at humor was absent. He looked genuinely unsettled. Elena emerged from her room, looking annoyingly composed. "Let me guess," she said. "The house tried to cuddle you." Jonas stared at her. "Did nothing happen to you?" Elena shrugged. "I slept like a rock. If the house wants my attention, it will have to do better than atmospheric nonsense." Simon's door opened. He stepped out, pale, eyes wide. "Something knocked," he said, "in the hall, all night, like it was walking up and down, stopping at doors, stopping at mine for a long time." He looked at us, as if asking for confirmation that he had not imagined it. I felt a chill, because I had not heard footsteps in the hall. Only the tapping on my wall. Only the whisper. Dr. Caldwell met us at breakfast, eyes scanning our faces. "Record everything," he said when we spoke about the night. "Even disbelief, especially disbelief." Elena rolled her eyes and scribbled in her journal anyway. After breakfast, Dr. Caldwell guided us through the first floor, showing common areas, pointing out locked doors, explaining the layout. But the layout did not make sense. We would walk down a corridor, turn left, and end up facing a staircase we had already passed, but from the wrong angle. A room would appear to be directly above another, but when we climbed, it was offset, the spaces not aligning. Windows that should have looked out onto the front lawn instead revealed only a close wall of stone. "It is the design," Dr. Caldwell said. "The house folds perception." Jonas muttered, "It folds my stomach." We spent the afternoon in the parlor, each of us assigned to sit alone for an hour and record sensations. The parlor was furnished with heavy sofas and a piano with its lid closed. The wallpaper here was striped, the stripes subtle, but they seemed to sway when I stared too long. I sat on a sofa, notebook in hand, and tried to be methodical. The air felt cooler by the interior wall. The room smelled faintly of smoke, though no one smoked. The floorboards creaked even when no one moved. The silence had texture. Halfway through my hour, I noticed something on the far wall, a dampness like a water stain, but it was moving, spreading outward in a shape that looked disturbingly deliberate. It formed letters, not quickly, slowly, like someone drawing with an invisible wet finger. "Myra." I stood, heart hammering, and the letters stopped forming. The dampness glistened for a moment, then began to recede, soaking back into the wall until the surface looked dry again. No stain remained. I wrote down what I had seen, my hand shaking so hard my words slanted. When my hour ended, Jonas came in, looking pale. "Please tell me you did not see the wall sweat your name," he said. I stared at him. "You did." Jonas laughed once, sharp and humorless. "It wrote mine," he said. "Jonas, like the house is learning us." Alina entered next, notebook in hand. "You both look ridiculous," she said, "like you just watched a sad movie." Simon hovered behind her, not wanting to step fully into the room. "It is not just suggestion," he whispered. "It is not." Alina waved a hand. "It is old plaster and humidity, and you all want it to be meaningful." She went in. The door closed behind her. Jonas and I waited in the hall with Simon, who kept glancing back and forth, as if expecting the corridor to move when he was not looking. After 20 minutes, Alina opened the door and stepped out. Her face had changed. Her composure was still there, but stretched thin, like fabric pulled too tight. "Well," she said, "I stand corrected." Jonas leaned forward. "What happened?" Alina swallowed. "The wallpaper," she said quietly. "The stripes. They moved, not like an illusion, like they were breathing. And I heard someone playing the piano." Jonas glanced at the closed piano. "But it is shut." Alina's eyes flicked toward the parlor. "It was shut," she said. And yet the music was there, like it was coming from inside the wood, like someone trapped inside was pressing keys from the wrong side. Simon made a small sound that might have been a sob caught in his throat. Dr. Caldwell took our notes that evening and nodded, his face tight with concentration. "The house responds," he said. "To what?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, To attention, he said, to presence, to the fact of being perceived. That night, Dr. Caldwell insisted we leave our doors slightly ajar, so he could hear if anyone called out. Mrs. Quill disapproved. Doors are meant to be shut, she said. Dr. Caldwell insisted anyway. I went to bed with my door cracked open, the hall a dark slice beyond. I tried to sleep. Hours passed with my eyes closed and my mind awake. Then I heard something that made my breath catch. Footsteps in the hall, slow, barely audible, but deliberate. They stopped outside my door. In the darkness, the crack of the doorway felt like an eye. Something shifted. A shadow moved across the sliver of hall, blocking it for a moment. I held my breath. A whisper slid through the crack, thin and intimate. Let me in. My body froze. The whisper came again, slightly different, as if trying on voices. Mara, it breathed. Mara, open the door. The voice sounded like my own, but wrong, like a recording played back warped. I squeezed my eyes, shut so hard it hurt. The footsteps moved away. They stopped again, farther down the hall. A door creaked, softly, then another. Someone else's breathing, sharp, frightened. Jonas's voice, muffled. No, no, go away. Then a sound, like something dragging across wood. Then silence. I lay there, trembling, and forced myself not to move. In the morning, Jonas looked like he had aged. It tried to get in, he said at breakfast, voice hoarse. It spoke in my mother's voice. Alina's face was pale. It stood in my doorway, she said. I could not see it, but the darkness was deeper there. Like a person shaped whole in the air. Simon stared at his hands. I think it was in my room, he whispered. I woke up and could not move, and something was leaning over me. I smelled wet earth, like a grave. Dr. Caldwell listened, eyes distant. And then he said something that made my stomach drop. It is escalating faster than I expected, he murmured. I set my fork down. Faster. Dr. Caldwell looked up. For a second, his professional mask slipped, and I saw fear. The first time I came here, he said. Nothing happened for 3 days. A silence fell over the table. Mrs. Quill stood behind Dr. Caldwell, her hands clasped. The house knows, she said quietly. When new people arrive, it knows. It tastes them. It chooses. Dr. Caldwell turned toward her sharply. Mrs. Quill. She met his gaze without flinching. Do not pretend it is only angles and suggestion, she said. You know better. Your rules do not matter here. Dr. Caldwell's jaw tightened. We will proceed carefully, he said. We will not provoke it. But by then, the house did not need provocation. We were already inside it, like insects inside a jar. That afternoon, the power went out. Not all at once. The lights flickered, dimmed, and then died, leaving the halls lit only by thin gray daylight and the occasional window that revealed nothing. But trees pressed close. Mrs. Quill lit candles with brisk efficiency, but the candlelight made the shadows move more. Dr. Caldwell attempted to call out, but there was no service. The landline in the library was dead. Jonas tried to joke. "Classic haunted house move," he said. "Next it will split us up." Alina's gaze snapped to him. "Do not say that." Simon whispered, "It wants us alone." Dr. Caldwell gathered us in the library and told us to remain together. He brought out old documents, maps, histories of the house. He spoke as if words could keep us anchored, but I noticed something about the documents. They did not match each other. Blueprints contradicted floor plans. Room names changed between records. A staircase appeared in one and vanished in another. A nursery was labeled in one set, then scratched out in another, replaced with the word empty in hard ink. Dr. Caldwell's voice slowed. "This house," he said, "has been rewritten." "By who?" Alina asked. Dr. Caldwell did not answer. A sound came from the ceiling above the library. A thump that made the chandelier tremble. Jonas flinched. "No one is above us, Doctor," he said. "You said that." Dr. Caldwell's face went pale. He swallowed. "No one should be," he said. Then a loud bang struck the library door, making the wood shudder. Simon screamed. The bang came again, harder, like a fist slamming into the door. Jonas surged forward instinctively, hand on the handle. Dr. Caldwell grabbed his wrist. "Do not open it," he hissed. The banging stopped. Silence returned so abruptly that my ears rang. Then softly, from the other side of the door, a child's voice. "Please," it said, "please let me in. I am cold." Alina's mouth tightened. "That is not real," she whispered. The child's voice came again, trembling. "I cannot find my mother." Simon began to cry silently, tears sliding down his face. Jonas's hand trembled on the handle. "It is a trick," Dr. Caldwell said. "It is using empathy. It is using recognition." The voice shifted, deepening, turning into a woman's voice now, sobbing. "Mara," it said. "Mara, help me." My throat closed. That voice sounded like my own mother. Not exactly, but close enough that my body responded before my mind could. A desperate urge to open the door surged in me, visceral and painful. I pressed my hands to my ears. Dr. Caldwell's grip on Jonas tightened. "Do not listen," he said. "Do not answer. It wants response." The voice outside grew angry. "You are cruel," it hissed. "You are cruel for leaving me here." A scraping sound came next, as if fingernails dragged down the wood. Long, slow, deliberate. Then nothing. We stood in candlelight, breathing hard, as if we had survived a storm. Dr. Caldwell's voice was low. "We stay together," he said. "We do not answer it. We do not open doors we do not need to open." Jonas swallowed. What if it comes through anyway? Dr. Caldwell looked toward the door. "Then we will learn what it is," he said, "and we will endure." I did not like the word endure. It sounded like something you say when you do not believe escape is possible. Night fell early, the windows darkening into black mirrors. Without electricity, the house became even more alive. It creaked and sighed. It clicked behind the walls. The candles made everything flicker, casting shapes that seemed almost human at the edge of vision. Dr. Caldwell insisted we sleep in the same area, in the library, near the fire. Mrs. Quill brought blankets with tight disapproval. The house does not like crowds, she said. It likes pairs. It likes corners. Jonas tried to laugh. Well, tonight it gets a slumber party. We arranged ourselves on sofas and the floor. Simon clutched his notebook like a talisman. Elena sat upright, refusing to look afraid. Dr. Caldwell sat near the door, eyes alert. I lay on the rug near the hearth, feeling the warmth against my cheek, trying to let it soothe me. At some point, the fire dimmed, not from lack of wood. The flames simply sank, as if pressed down by invisible hands. The room grew colder. Then the sound began. Knocking, not on the door this time, on the walls, soft at first, then louder, then from multiple directions. A pattern like a heartbeat, but not human, too slow, too steady. Jonas sat up, eyes wide. It is all around us, he whispered. The knocking grew louder, synchronized, as if the house itself was tapping in rhythm. Simon began to rock, whispering, "Stop, stop, stop." Elena stood, candle in hand, anger burning through her fear. "Enough," she snapped. "You are walls, you are wood, you are nothing." The knocking stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse. Then a sound rose from the chimney, a scraping, as if something were climbing down inside it. Soot drifted into the air. Dr. Caldwell stood abruptly. Back from the fireplace, he ordered. We scrambled away. The fire, already low, flickered once. Then the soot erupted outward, as if expelled. A shape fell from the chimney into the hearth. Not an animal, not a person. Something that looked like a bundle of black cloth, moving, writhing. The smell hit us, wet earth and old decay. Simon screamed. The bundle unfolded. It was not cloth. It was hair, long, matted hair, soaked in something dark, twisting as if alive. Beneath it, pale skin glistened for a moment, like something dragged from a river. A face turned toward us. The candlelight caught eyes that were not eyes, more like hollows filled with shadow, and a mouth that stretched too wide. Elena stumbled back, candle shaking. Jonas grabbed a poker from the hearthstand, holding it out like a weapon. Dr. Caldwell's voice broke. "No," he whispered, "no." The thing in the hearth moved, not walking, not crawling, but sliding, its hair trailing like tendrils. Then, with a sound like a wet gasp, it vanished. Not leaving, simply gone, as if it had never been there. Only soot remained, scattered across the rug like black snow. We stared at the empty hearth, breathing hard. Jonas's voice was thin. "Okay," he said, "so that happened." Elena's defiance had drained from her face. She looked sick. Simon was sobbing openly. Dr. Caldwell sank into a chair, hands shaking. That, he whispered, was not suggestion. Mrs. Quill stood at the edge of the room, her face expressionless. The house shows itself when it wishes, she said. When you are tired enough, when you are frightened enough, when it can make you believe. Dr. Caldwell looked up. What does it want? Mrs. Quill's gaze slid to the dark windows. Company, she said. It has been alone too long, and it remembers how to be full. We did not sleep after that. Morning arrived like an apology that did not mean anything. Dr. Caldwell called a meeting at the breakfast table. Candles still burning because the power had not returned. We are leaving, he said. Jonas let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and a sob combined. Finally, he said, Great, fantastic, love that. Alina nodded vigorously. Yes, we leave. Simon stared down, voice small. Will it let us? Dr. Caldwell ignored that. We will go as a group, he said. We will pack essentials. We will drive down the lane and through the gate. Mrs. Quill's voice was quiet. The gate, she said, does not always open. Dr. Caldwell's jaw tightened. It opened for them before, he said, as if reciting evidence to convince himself. Mrs. Quill said nothing. We went upstairs to pack. I moved quickly, shoving clothes into my bag with shaking hands. The room felt colder than before. The mirror above the dresser reflected me pale, eyes too wide. As I zipped my bag, I heard something in the wardrobe, a soft scratching. I froze. The scratches I had felt the first day flashed in my mind. The sound came again, slow and deliberate, like fingernails dragging along wood. I backed away from the wardrobe. The door handle turned, very slowly, as if something inside was taking its time. I ran. I threw open my door into the hallway and nearly collided with Alina, who looked as terrified as I felt. Did you hear that? She whispered. Before I could answer, a scream tore through the corridor. Simon! It came from his room at the far end. Jonas burst out of his room and sprinted towards Simon's door. Dr. Caldwell appeared behind him, face pale. We followed. The door to Simon's room was open. Simon stood inside, frozen, staring at the wall above his bed. There were words there. Not dampness this time, not condensation. They were carved into the wallpaper, gouged into the plaster beneath, deep and raw, as if cut by a knife. Stay. Simon's voice was a whisper. It wrote it while I watched, he said. The wall moved like skin. The letters opened like wounds. Jonas stepped into the room, breathing hard. Okay, he said. Cool, great. Message received, still leaving. Dr. Caldwell looked around the room, then at Simon. Simon, get your things, he said quickly. Simon shook his head, eyes fixed on the carved word. It does not want us to go, he whispered. Alina grabbed Simon's arm. It does not get a vote, she snapped. Move. Simon blinked, as if waking from a trance. He grabbed his bag and let Alina pull him out. We moved down the stairs together, bags in hand, breaths shallow. The house felt different, not just threatening, active. The air seemed to press against us as we descended, like water against a swimmer. In the foyer, Mrs. Quill stood by the door, her hands clasped. Dr. Caldwell reached for the handle. The door did not open. He pulled harder. Nothing. Jonas stepped forward. "Let me," he said, forcing humor into his voice. He grabbed the handle, yanked. The door did not move. Alina's voice rose. "What is this? Is it locked?" Dr. Caldwell tried the key. It turned in the lock, smooth and useless. The door remained sealed. A sound came from above us. Footsteps on the upper landing. Slow, measured, descending. We all looked up. The staircase was dim. Shadows clung to the banister. The footsteps came closer, one step at a time, but no one appeared. Simon began to whimper. "It is coming," he whispered. "It is coming down." Dr. Caldwell stepped back from the door, face tight. "Everyone," he said, "library now." We ran. The hallway seemed longer than it had before, stretching in a way that made my lungs burn. The portraits on the walls seemed to watch us, their eyes dark, their expressions too solemn. We reached the library and slammed the door behind us. Dr. Caldwell shoved a chair under the handle. Jonas leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Okay," he gasped. "So plan B." Dr. Caldwell's hands trembled as he pushed hair back from his forehead. "There must be another exit," he said. "Servant doors, cellar doors." Mrs. Quill's voice came from the corner. "The servants were not meant to leave," she said. "Not without permission." Alina rounded on her. "Whose permission?" Mrs. Quill's expression did not change. "The house," she said. The words landed like a physical blow. Jonas's voice cracked. "It is a building." Mrs. Quill looked at him with something almost like pity. "It was built by a man who wanted it to be alive," she said. "He made it as you would make a cage. He fed it with his family. He fed it with grief. It has been hungry ever since." Dr. Caldwell's face had gone gray. "You knew," Alina said. "You knew this." Mrs. Quill's gaze slid to Dr. Caldwell. "He knew too," she said. All eyes turned to him. Dr. Caldwell swallowed. "I knew the stories," he said. "I did not know the truth. I thought, I believed, that observation could be safe." Jonas laughed, sharp. "Observation, sure." We observed a hair monster crawl out of the fireplace. Simon sat on the floor, rocking. "It is going to keep us," he whispered. "It is going to keep us inside." The library door shuddered. A soft knock, then another, then a scraping. Dr. Caldwell stepped back, face twisted with fear and determination. "We need daylight," he said. "We need to break a window, climb out." Alina nodded. "Yes, break the window." But when we looked, the windows were wrong. They were there, tall and curtained. But behind the curtains, the glass did not show outside. It showed darkness, like the window opened onto nothing. Jonas approached one cautiously and yanked the curtain aside. The glass reflected the room, but behind the reflection there was only black. No trees, no sky, just an absence. Jonas pressed his palm to the glass. It was cold, too cold. His breath fogged it, and in the fog, words formed. "Welcome home." Jonas jerked his hand back. "Nope," he said. "Nope. I do not live here. I do not pay rent." Alina's face twisted with anger. "This is not possible." Simon whispered, "It does not have to be possible. It only has to be true inside." Dr. Caldwell looked around, eyes darting to the shelves, the fireplace, the doors. "There is one place we have not gone," he said. Jonas frowned. "The Forbidden Tower Nursery." Dr. Caldwell nodded. "The North Tower. It is unstable. I said not to go, but it may be the house's center. If there is a way to break its grip, it might be there." Alina stared at him. "You want us to climb into the one place you warned us not to." Dr. Caldwell's jaw set. "We are already in danger," he said. "We can either wait for it to come through that door, or we can go toward whatever holds it together." The library door shuddered again. A voice came through, low and intimate, like someone speaking inches from your ear. "Myra." My blood froze. The voice continued, soft. "You are already mine." I could not tell if it was speaking to me or to all of us, using my name because it had learned it would cut deepest. Simon screamed. Dr. Caldwell grabbed a candle, thrust it into Jonas's hands. "Go," he said, "now." We left the library through a side door that opened into a corridor I did not remember. The house had rearranged itself. The hallway was narrower, the walls closer. The air smelled stronger now, metallic and wet. We moved quickly, candlelight bobbing. The shadows seemed to crowd toward us. The floorboards creaked under our feet, not with normal wood sounds, but like something whispering. We found the staircase that led to the North Tower. It was a spiral, tight, claustrophobic, the steps worn smooth. The air grew colder with each turn. The candle flame flickered as if struggling to breathe. Simon's breathing became ragged. "I cannot," he whispered. Alina grabbed his arm. "Yes, you can," she said fiercely. "You can because you have to." Above us, a faint sound echoed down the spiral. Laughter, that same distant laughter I had heard the first night, but closer now, threaded with something like delight. Jonas's voice was tight. "It is laughing at us." We climbed. The stairs seemed to go on too long, the spiral repeating, making me dizzy. At one point, I could have sworn we passed the same crack in the stone twice. Then we reached a landing and a door. The door was smaller than the others, painted white, with a brass knob. It looked almost ordinary. That ordinariness was terrifying. Dr. Caldwell reached for the knob. His hand stopped inches away, trembling. "Listen," he said quietly. "If any of you feel the urge to stay, to lie down, to stop moving, you tell me. The house will try to make you surrender. Do not surrender. Jonas swallowed. I do not surrender. I flee dramatically. Alina did not laugh. Dr. Caldwell opened the door. The nursery smelled of old linens and something sour underneath. The room was round, walls curved, ceiling domed. A single window sat high, but it did not show outside. It showed only swirling gray, like fog pressed against glass. There was a crib in the center of the room. It was empty. A rocking horse sat near the wall, its paint chipped, its eyes glassy. The wallpaper here was different. It was covered in painted figures, children holding hands, their faces blank. The figures circled the room, repeating, endless. The candlelight made them look like they were moving. Simon made a sound. No, he whispered. No, no. On the far side of the room was another door. Dr. Caldwell stared at it, expression haunted. That door was not on the plans, he murmured. Jonas stepped closer, candle held high. Of course it is not, he said. Secret horror door, perfect. Alina reached out and touched the wall, fingers tracing the painted children. The paint felt warm under her hand. She recoiled. It is warm, she said, like skin. The rocking horse creaked. We all froze. It rocked slightly, as if nudged. Then again. Then the crib began to rock too, gently, like an unseen hand pushing it. Simon's breathing turned into a sob. There is no baby, he whispered. The rocking intensified, faster now. The horse, the crib, a chair in the corner that began to sway. The whole room felt like it was moving in a slow circle. The painted children on the walls seemed to lean inward. A voice rose, not from one place, but from the room itself, like sound embedded in plaster. Sing, it murmured. Sing for me. Dr. Caldwell shook his head. No, he said, no. The voice grew sharper. You came to watch. Now be part of it. The candle flames bent sideways, as if blown by a breath. Then the far door creaked open. Darkness spilled from it, thicker than normal shadow. And in that darkness, something shifted. Not a shape, not fully. A presence, a sense of something tall and patient. Jonas raised the poker, hands shaking. Doctor, he whispered, what is that? Dr. Caldwell's voice was barely audible. Silas Briarwick, he said, or what remains of his will. The house's maker, the house's mouth. The presence moved forward, and the temperature dropped so sharply, my lungs ached. Simon collapsed to his knees, staring into the dark doorway, as if into a beloved face. I am sorry, he whispered. I am sorry for leaving you alone. Alina grabbed him. Simon, no. Simon's eyes were glassy. It is so lonely, he whispered. It just wants someone to stay. The painted children on the walls began to change. Their blank faces gained mouths. Small, dark mouths, opening wider than they should. The mouths moved in unison, soundless at first. Then a whisper rose from them. Dozens of voices layered, thin and childlike. Stay, stay, stay. My stomach turned. Dr. Caldwell stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. "You cannot have them," he said into the darkness. "You cannot have any more." The darkness pulsed. A laugh deep and wet rolled through the room. Then the room shifted. The door behind us vanished, not physically disappearing, but the wall where it had been became seamless, painted children now covering it. Alina spun, panic flashing across her face. "No," Jonas cursed. Okay, new plan. Break the window." But the window was high, unreachable, and the swirling gray beyond it looked like it would swallow anything thrown through. The voices from the walls grew louder. "Stay." Simon began to crawl toward the dark doorway, crying softly, like someone returning home. I grabbed his shoulders and pulled him back. His skin was cold, clammy. His eyes met mine, and for a second I saw not Simon, but something behind his gaze, as if the house looked through him. "You belong here," he whispered. "We all do. It knows our names." I felt a pressure in my chest, a sudden weight of longing, absurd and terrifying. A desire to stop fighting, to sink into the house's rhythm, to let its walls hold me. It would be so easy. Alina slapped Simon's face. The sound cracked in the room. Simon blinked, shocked, and a little of himself returned. Jonas stared at Alina. "Remind me not to annoy you." Alina's voice was fierce. "We do not stay," she said. "We do not become wallpaper." Dr. Caldwell's gaze snapped to the far door, to the darkness pulsing there. He looked suddenly certain, as if something had clicked. "It wants a substitution," he said. "It wants someone to choose it willingly. That is how it seals." Jonas's voice rose. "So what? It needs a volunteer, like a cursed timeshare." Dr. Caldwell swallowed hard. "It took the Briarwick family," he said. "It took workers. It took caretakers. It tries to take whoever steps inside and listens too long." He looked at Simon, whose face was wet with tears. "It found the easiest doorway," he murmured. Simon shook his head, trembling. No, I do not want to." The walls whispered, seductive now. "Stay." Dr. Caldwell's eyes flicked to us, then back to the dark doorway. "If it wants willingness," he said slowly, "then we must refuse it together. As one, no cracks." Alina frowned. "How?" Dr. Caldwell's face twisted with desperation. "We deny it our names," he said. "We deny it the thing it used first. Attention, recognition. We do not answer. We do not label. We do not give it the shape of us." Jonas barked a laugh that was half panic. "So we just, stop being ourselves?" Dr. Caldwell's voice shook. "For a moment, yes." The darkness in the far doorway surged forward, and the room grew colder. The painted mouths opened wider. The rocking horse rattled across the floor, scraping wood. Simon screamed as something invisible yanked him forward by his ankles. I grabbed him, but the pull was strong, like a tide. Alina grabbed his arms. Jonas grabbed my waist. Dr. Caldwell grabbed Jonas. We became a chain, bodies straining, feet sliding on the wood. Simon's nails scraped the floorboards, leaving pale marks. The whispers became a roar. Stay. In the strain, in the terror, a strange thought surfaced, something I remembered from my own research. The way people in sensory deprivation begin to hallucinate because the mind cannot tolerate emptiness. The way identity can blur under pressure. The way names, spoken repeatedly, can become meaningless sounds. Dr. Caldwell's instruction made a brutal kind of sense. If the house fed on recognition, then starving it meant severing the cords it had wrapped around us. I squeezed my eyes shut. I forced my mind away from words. I stopped thinking Mara. I stopped thinking of my mother, my apartment, my past. I tried to become only breath and muscle. Alina's voice came, low and tight. Not a name, not even a sentence, just a sound, a steady exhale. Jonas began to count under his breath, but he stopped midway, as if numbers were too close to words. Dr. Caldwell made a soft humming noise, a monotone vibration like a tuning fork. We clung. The pull on Simon weakened slightly, as if confused. The whispers faltered. The room wavered, the painted children blurring like wet ink. Then suddenly, the chain of force snapped. Simon's body jerked backward into us, and we all collapsed in a heap, gasping, tangled. The silence that followed was immense. The rocking stopped. The painted mouths closed. The darkness in the far doorway receded, pulsing once like a heart, then drawing back, leaving only an ordinary, shadowed room beyond. A sound came behind us. A click. We turned. The door we had entered through had returned. Alina's face was streaked with sweat. Move, she rasped. We did not hesitate. We grabbed Simon and ran out, down the spiral stairs, candlelight shaking wildly. The house creaked around us like an animal shifting in its sleep. At the bottom of the staircase, the corridor was different again. But this time, the front door appeared at the end, as if the house, exhausted or momentarily uncertain, had loosened its grip. Dr. Caldwell did not slow. He threw himself at the front door handle. This time it opened. Cold air rushed in, smelling of wet leaves and freedom. We spilled onto the porch, stumbling, blinking at gray daylight that felt impossibly bright. The trees outside seemed to lean toward us, branches trembling slightly as if in anticipation. Jonas ran down the steps, half dragging his bag, and laughed hysterically. "We are outside," he gasped. "We are outside." Dr. Caldwell grabbed my arm. "The gate," he said. "We have to get through the gate." We sprinted to the cars, tires crunching gravel. Simon sobbed in the back seat of Alina's car. Jonas fumbled with his keys like his hands belonged to someone else. Dr. Caldwell's car started on the second try, engine roaring like a promise. We drove down the winding lane, faster than we should have, branches whipping at windows. Behind us, Hill House loomed, still and watchful, its windows dark. As we approached the iron gate, my stomach clenched. The gate stood closed. Dr. Caldwell's car stopped in front of the keypad. He leaned out, fingers trembling, and punched in the code. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the gate began to open. Slowly, with a grinding sound like teeth, Jonas's car idled behind, engine revving, impatient. The gate opened wide enough for one car at a time. Dr. Caldwell drove through first. Elena followed, her car lurching forward. Jonas's car was last. As Jonas pulled up, the gate shuddered. It began to close, not smoothly, jerking, slamming downward as if something had grabbed it. Jonas screamed and hit the gas. The gate slammed down onto the hood of his car with a metallic shriek. The car lurched, stuck. Jonas's face pressed to the windshield, eyes wild. "Help," he shouted. Dr. Caldwell stopped on the other side, leapt out, ran back. Elena did too. I did too. We grabbed the gate bars, heaving upward. The metal was cold, vibrating, as if resisting. Inside the property, the wind rose suddenly, swirling leaves around us. From the distant house, a sound carried across the grounds. Laughter, low and pleased. The gate pressed down harder, crushing Jonas's hood. Jonas screamed again, panic breaking through. "I am not staying," he sobbed. "I am not staying." Dr. Caldwell's face contorted with effort. "Push," he shouted. We pushed. The gate lifted a fraction. Jonas floored it. The car surged forward, scraping metal, sparks flying. The gate slammed down behind him as his car shot through, barely clearing. We stumbled backward on the outside, breathing hard, staring at the closed gate as if it might lunge. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, as if with reluctant politeness, the gate clicked open again. An invitation, a mockery. Dr. Caldwell backed away, face pale. "Do not look back," he whispered. "Do not look." But I did, because some part of me needed to know if it was real, if it still stood there, if the nightmare had a physical anchor. Hill House watched from the end of the lane, still as stone, and in one of its upper windows, where no light should have been, I saw movement, a pale shape, a face pressed against glass, mouth opening wide as if calling. I could not hear the words, but I knew with sick certainty what it said. "Come home." I turned away and got into the car, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. We drove until the trees thinned, until the road widened, until my phone regained signal, and the world returned in small, mundane details: road signs, mailboxes, a gas station, a billboard for a fast food place. Normality felt obscene. We did not speak much after that. Dr. Caldwell paid us. He apologized. He did not meet our eyes. Mrs. Quill did not come with us. She remained behind the gate, a small figure in plain clothes, watching as if she had seen this many times. A week later, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was my journal, the one I had brought to Hill House. I had not packed it. I had left it on the library table when we ran. The cover was smeared with soot. Inside, on the last page, words had been pressed so hard they tore the paper. Not written in ink, etched, Myra, and beneath it, in smaller letters, careful and patient. I know the way you breathe when you are afraid. I burned the journal in my sink. I watched the pages curl and blacken. I watched my name distort in flame. For a moment, as the last scraps turned to ash, I thought I heard, very faintly, laughter. Not from the room, not from outside, from inside the walls. I moved apartments 3 times. I never used the same keychain again. I stopped writing my name at the top of notebooks. I stopped answering unknown calls. And still, sometimes, when I am half asleep, I hear 3 slow taps on the wall beside my bed. Not every night, just often enough, as if something is reminding me that doors are meant to be shut. But boundaries are not always obeyed, as if somewhere, in a house built wrong on purpose, the corridors shift and settle, and the rooms count the days, and a hungry place remembers the taste of being full. And if you are listening to this in the dark, if your room feels suddenly too quiet, if the corner of your ceiling looks deeper than it should, do not look too long. Do not give the darkness a name. Do not answer it if it asks. And if you hear a voice that sounds like someone you love, pleading softly from the other side of a door you do not remember closing, do not open it, because some houses are not just houses. Some houses learn you, and once they do not forget. Thank you for listening. If you made it to the end, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more. Until next time, keep your lights close, keep your doors shut, and if the walls start to whisper, let them whisper to themselves. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close